Well, welcome back, everybody, to Comerit's What's Up Enterprise, where we explore the latest technology trends across industries with leading experts from around the globe. Today, I've got a very special guest today, Tom Madonna from SAP. And I think you, my guests who are watching, are going to find his background very exciting to have Tom on with over 35 years in technology experience, but also over those years, helping organizations transform as technology transforms within the manufacturing and I believe automotive background. But I'm going to let Tom just talk a little bit about his background, and then I'm going to ask him a lot of questions because there's so much going on in today's world, like every minute, every second. So, Tom, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, David, and thanks, viewers. Tom Madonna, Industry VP. My current industry coverage is the services industries. So I cover professional services, financial services, travel and transportation, ECO, telecom media, hospitality, and entertainment. But over the background, and yeah, it's been over 30 years, I have covered 25 of our 26 industries. Have over 500 implementations under my belt, ranging from taking customers off of R2, moving to R3, all the way through our current platform of S4. And my responsibility in industry advisory is to basically be that point of the spear, point of the arrow, having conversations with the executives, the C-suites, talking about business challenges, opportunities, and where they see technology fitting to solve some of those and bring the value of the technology to them as they do those implementations.
Awesome. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to free form a lot of my questions. So Tom, tell us how you got started. How did you get into this industry? You can even start back in the college time. Tell us about that.
So in high school, I actually took a basic course, and it was one of the only courses I took that wasn't one of advanced placements. So I could only get a 4.0 in it versus a 5.0, but I liked it. So I got to undergraduate at UT and started conversations. My dad was an accountant, so I started in the accounting side and the business side, and quickly found that we didn't need two accountants in the household, and so I started looking at other things. Went over to the computer science department and took a Fortran class like that, but really was too scientific, too kind of down deep into not seeing the business side of it. Really liked the business approach to it. So I moved over to MIS and graduated with an MIS degree from UT. Spent a bit of time then doing custom work. Actually started working on the competitors database on version 1 and implementing their apps and custom apps for about 4 or 5 years, and then moved over to start my master's. And once I started my master's, graduate from master's, I actually moved over to PwC, or actually PW at the time, then the merger, then the acquisition, and moved into SAP, and been basically working as best of breed, first of a kind implementations throughout. So it was one of the first implementations of connecting then Commerce One to SAP in procurement, to then move Commerce One over into EBP, and EBP into S4 into SRM, and then finally taking that out with Ariba. So it's been an interesting ride, and most of what I found to be the most interesting has been the running the business, the operation side of it. So let it be the cost accounting structure of it, the supply chain, the inbound and outbound logistics. All of those things have been kind of where the business problems have lied, and that's really where I've spent most of my career working, is looking at those best of breeds, and how the operations of the organization can be bettered with technology. Let it be in the core, or let it be extensions of the core.
So, Tom, I had a very interesting, unique introduction into SAP. My background's actually anatomy, physiology. I went to school. I thought I was going to become a doctor, and a lot of my friends asked me, "So, how'd you get involved with SAP?" And it was really my understanding of the human physiology that interested me in SAP specifically, because I kind of saw uh, SAP similar to the systems that I watched or that I really spent a lot of time with in the human body, many, many different systems. And so I understood it quite well. And so I was really excited. This was probably just after 2.2. I watched, do you remember? I've asked many of my guests about this. Do you remember when SAP used to drive around that, it was a big rig and you could go in the back of the big rig and they had all these screens and they had these executive cockpits and you went inside the big rig and they showed. So that was my impression. I saw SAP and I was like, wow, look at this. I would know every single aspect of my company if I had these dashboards. I could tell exactly when orders came in. Did I need to hire new employees? Now, this is completely my own impression. How many employees do I need? Did I need to order more aluminum? Do we have enough trucks? Are our shipping lanes correct? This is just the way I thought. And honestly, back then, I had this sense that the AI or algorithms then gave us these contextualized insights back. I'll date myself a little bit. I think this was in 98 is when I was really intrigued with it. And here we are today. Obviously, much has changed. Many, many, many progressions. I think after a while, I started realizing that, gosh, this data, we're getting a lot of data here. Maybe we ought to start focusing on how do we parse data and that sort of thing. But can you tell me a little bit about your experience, your understanding? Like, what was your first impression when you saw SAP and what you thought it was going to do for industry?
So my first dipping of toe of SAP was obviously manufacturing, and I had spent a great deal of time implementing competitors' products through many versions, and kind of understood the manufacturing process there. When I started working on SAP, there were differences in regards to how phantom execution was actually working, plus the in-out processing, plus all of the constraints-based MRP execution.
Mm-hmm.
As you started thinking through that, the technology had not caught up with the need at that point. You ran MRP, and MRP ran overnight or 24 hours, and then ultimately you got to change it once a month. When you start looking at the new advances in technology and the execution of those databases as they sit today, something that was running an MRP back in the early 2000s now run in seconds with the same execution, same explosion processing. So the capability of the chip, the capability of the databases has far improved. You see the same thing with analytics. I mean, originally you were looking at some of these forecasting models that basically looked at min-max execution, in some cases a holistic review of a product in regards to the weaves and throws, the trend analysis of your sales, and that basically read into your MRP. Well, today you now can predict based upon modeling, and those modeling algorithms are as big and wide as you would like to use them based upon the data model you're actually looking at. So as you start to look at the analytics and the AI execution, it's really how you train those models in regards to what they need, how they want to execute, and how they want to react is really going to be the secret sauce of using AI and advanced analytics in your process. Going back to your comment about how SAP was kind of in the middle of it, I've always viewed the ERP system as the heart of technology within an organization. It is the thing that pumps the blood to and from the different appendages and basically goes through it. Now with AI on top of that, not only is it the heart, it's also the brain. And as you start to train your AI use cases and execution models, that brain becomes more self-sufficient, and you can then build upon that to higher and higher levels of models for more advancements in regards to those. So what was rudimentary or trivial or manual, a couple years back in regards to matching processing, applying of cache, even analytics in regards to, your weakest link in your supply chain now can all be overcome with these models, such that the model learns to know what to look for, learns to adapt to it, understands the answer it's looking for, and where it goes. And so part of what we're doing in the organization is actually starting to use those models, start to talk to them. And one of the things we're doing this week is Friday we have an all hands, and it's the holiday all hands. And we've actually given a responsibility back out to all the advisors to go out and with AI build your best Christmas scene that you could basically go through. And we're going to then basically grade them on the most interesting, the most genuine, the execution. So I pumped mine in a model, and my first pop out was excellent. But I said, hometown, Main Street at night with a full moon, Christmas time in Texas, and it basically came back with a bit of snow dusting on the sidewalks, with wreaths and lights out, with people bustling back and forth across different shops, looking onto a main square with a courthouse, and the moon basically right above the courthouse. So that's what I went with. But it was about 12 seconds for AI to basically go through and build that out. And it's pretty enough to be a Christmas card if need be. But
the question I have is, did it take longer to get to where we're at today, or shorter, in terms of the amount of time that passed to get to what we're seeing today, in your mind, from your perspective?
I think the technology and the speed of technology at this point in time is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. If you look at, and there's some interesting TikTok and Reel type of things that go through and talk about, how long it took for us to, invent wheel, discover fire, went through the Industrial Revolution, started using vehicles, to now. And if you just think through, even in our, and I'll date myself and date some others on this call, but even if you think about, the smartphone, and basically giving up your BlackBerry and moving to a smartphone, has been a relatively short period of time in regards to the advancements. The wafers and wafers that are out there and the chips that are out there have advanced as fast and furious as possible, and everything now has them. So some of the supply chain issues that occurred during the pandemic in regards to the number of chips and what needed to go into product really were, an interesting process of how dependent we are on things that are basically being built today. So I think technology is very much looking in the future and how the technology can be applied. And I think the advancements are right now in an exponential execution model where we're climbing that thing almost to a vertical basis based upon how fast we're moving.
I was going to ask, I'm sure my guests are mostly familiar with Moore's law, but I think what we're seeing is more vertical in terms of technology advancement, for sure. I was telling some guests I had yesterday that I think something's advanced today, and then if I wait till this afternoon, someone will show me how they advance that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tom, I grew up in this industry in Silicon Valley. A friend of mine you might be familiar with, Curtis Prame. He started NVIDIA. He was one of the original engineers, and I don't know if you saw the Forbes article, but we were talking about it last time. We were saying if he had held on to, well, I don't know how much he's actually holding now, but he's pretty much spends his time in philanthropy. But if he had just maintained that pace, based upon all the development and research and stuff they're putting in these chips. I mean, most people won't remember NVIDIA from Xbox, but today we know that they're very focused around OpenAI. There's a great relationship between OpenAI or Microsoft and NVIDIA. Forbes had an article saying that he would be worth somewhere around $70 billion today had he stayed in. Now he's still somewhat connected. Like he still lives in the area. by me here, but I should probably get him on an interview too. I would love to get his insight and what he thinks, how things are today. Um, I'd like to ask you. You were at IBM, correct? So back in the day, Watson came out. I have some very good friends. You and I share some very good friends that are still at IBM. How do you see Watson comparing to, let's pick any other similar technology? Just choose one. Tell me, how do you feel that
Well, I mean,
technology
if you
compares?
think of Watson, Watson was kind of early in on some of the AI processing that's going through it. And SAP and IBM have a joint venture at this point in time where we're integrating Watson X into the platform,
Oh
directly
wow.
into the SAP platform. We also, we look at, and again, the card I just sent you was done with actually Chat GPT hooked with Dyla, and that was basically the portion of the image that basically comes out of it. But Bling, Chat, all are technologies that are going out there. I think the thing that's interesting about Watson is it was built to do a function originally, and that function was then adapted. So it was originally built, if you go back, it was built to basically play chess.
Um,
For all the rigmarole that went through it, they wanted to build the best chess game that they could. And though chess has unlimited number of moves, it is finite in regards to the end game. And the algorithm was built to basically go through and win. And what they found was it wasn't winning.
hmm,
When they changed the algorithm and they said, don't lose,
don't
that changed the
lose.
structure. And when they went back and played, some of the grand chess masters that were on, they would basically come up with 100% non-losing, theory. And some of that was things that were unconventional to an average, human player, sacrificing of the queen, sacrificing of both bishops. But in the reality of playing 1,000 games, that new algorithm basically tied, 18 to 20% of the time and won 80% of the time with a new approach of looking at the same problem. And the problem wasn't winning; the problem was just not losing. And so you
Right.
start to think about problems. I kind of put this analogy in place for a lot of my colleagues and mentors is if you're looking at the problem the same way every time you look at it, you're never going to come up with a different way of solving it. So I look at a problem or a challenge or an opportunity like a Rubik's Cube. And once you've mastered a side, turn the object to the next side and look at that. And then same thing, master that side and move it again. So you've got to look at the problems, the challenges out there in different facets and different ways to basically get better at what you're physically going to do. And going back to some of the new structures, prototype early, lose, or fail fast. A lot of those are new ways of learning problems that can be solved in different ways as compared to where they're not. And so you start to look at what Watson is going to do and apply to the business. There's two things that you've got to worry about with AI out there right now. One is the AI's got to learn. And two, the AI's got to learn on data, and it's got to learn on clean data. And so when you start looking at our platform and running, 90% of business transactions through on a day-to-day basis, that is a big, large structure of data. And we've actually been relevant and reliable to ask our clients, and our customers, can we use your data to actually run things on? And the answer has been yes. And if you start to think about what that's going to do, it's going to better the approach in regards to it learning faster, learning smarter, and being better. And so Watson has continued to adapt to that. We've continued to adapt to that. And I think part of that is now solving big business problems. I mean, it's great that AI can go out and produce a graphic or image, but can it solve, a supply chain issue? Can it basically do a differentiation and give you the best, most profitable contract that you want to basically execute? Can it look across all your contracts and determine your best terms and conditions that basically save you money and time? Can it optimize your future of work and your supply chain of resources in regards to making calls on hiring, firing, moving, optimizing certain things in regards to making sure that people are being used most effectively and most efficiently for the organization? I think the one thing that's also was interesting, I was on a podcast 2 weeks back, and one of the panelists was using AI for building out learning curriculum. And so being able to build out learning curriculum at a faster, more advanced pace, keeping up with all of the copyrights and everything that goes on with that. And one of the things that was mentioned at that point in time was a conversation that said, hey, if you could interview anybody you wanted to, present or past, who would it be? And that led to basically a spinoff of another podcast we're going to do here in the next month or so, which is a fictional person that you'd like to have AI interview and a real person who is no longer here. And it's turned out to be an interesting situation because every panelist has got to come back with the two people they would interview and why they would interview. And the moderator of that show particularly came back this morning and found out that this is actually occurring. So you can actually go to a museum in
I saw
and actually talk to Van Gogh. And ultimately the comments on the bottom of it was Van Gogh's doing more work now than he ever had even when he was alive.
Right.
So you actually go in and you actually talk to the image slash avatar of him, and you can ask him questions and he'll go through all of the pieces and all the things he's learned. They've loaded all of his images, his thought processes, what he thought of his paintings, why he did certain things in the paintings. And he can actually teach you why he actually painted this particular portrait at this time of his life and what he was thinking and the style he was actually trying to portray. So it really becomes interesting in regards to bringing history and museums and things like that to life that, as a kid, one thing that I loved, in elementary school was always going the one day of the year where we got to go to the Natural History Museum and the zoo. And in Denver, they're right next to each other. So we did the zoo in the morning and Natural History Museum in the afternoon. And to walk through the history and to, see the dinosaur skeletons and everything else. Well, but now you push play and you're actually seeing them on screen.
It's amazing.
Yes, Jurassic Park, and there's been a lot of things that have come out with the different technologies we've done, but to actually have a conversation with a real person versus just seeing something swim or something walk is going to be completely mind-boggling to how people learn. And one thing that's interesting in the learning curriculum is most people learn one of three ways. Either they are just straight readers and they can absorb through memory, et cetera, and that's how they learn. Second, people are listeners and they listen and they basically pick up through their auditory senses. And the other ones are visual. And one thing I found when I was going through college and middle school and high school was I had the memorization right, but it was always boring. It was always a situation where it was difficult to sit down and read, 14 chapters for that first, class you're going to take. Or you had, the English professor assigned, 48 novels, for the course. It was much easier for me to physically go through, listen to something, let it be an audiobook, let it be a conversation, see something, and that was a lot easier to gather and to absorb. And I think that once you start looking at AI and what AI is going to do, you're going to see it have completely new different ways of attracting new opportunities, new career paths, new ways of doing things, both on a human basis as well as on a business basis. And how we apply those are really going to be interesting to see, how fast those come. Because again, if we're back to that exponential curve, we're already up. We're almost vertical. And so even small, minute changes in our ability to use that technology in different applications will have advancements beyond what we can think about.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm curious, because I agree with you. I'm very much that type of learner also. I learn better immersed in it. And so I'm actually pretty excited for like some of the new like Apple Vision that's coming out, some of the other uh, devices that they're putting out there. I think Meta has a new one also. You run this group that's basically going out and identifying the solutions and challenges that you guys can solve. Can you talk about how your group, how you work with SAP customers and the value that that group provides for
Sure.
SAP
Sure. So
customers?
my group, Industry Advisory, is the tip of the spear, the tip of the arrow. So we are the first or second conversation that's occurring with the customer. Let it be a new customer, let it be a old customer who's coming back with looking at new product, or let it be white space in a customer who's already running our product but not using it in this particular area. But we're the ones that are having the conversation with that executive to talk about what their problems are, what their challenges are, how they basically want to use something to help them better their KPI execution model within their organization. We take that, we look at the trends within the industry, the operations, those things that are important to the peers within that industry group, and apply that industry knowledge to how to better communicate and have a conversation in regards to how technology can solve those challenges and opportunities. That goes all the way through. So that's just the beginning. We go all the way through the supply chain of selling to include having a conversations, having door openers, being involved with demos and discovery, being involved with talking through all of the business case, the execution. Once they made a purchase, being involved with the steering committees, and then helping them basically feel the value and gain the value that they basically bought with the technology, so that they're long time and lifetime customers.
So you've got a pretty good overall perspective. What are the one or two most focused on topics you think, given where we're at with artificial intelligence, when you're out there having conversations with people, what are they tending to gravitate towards?
I think a lot of it is, and I go back to cat and a light, or cat and shiny shiny object. Everyone from board level down is talking about AI. We got to use AI. We got to use AI. We got to get it. We got to go buy it. We got to do something with it. That's not the issue. The issue is not making the purchase of an engine. The issue is, what are you going to do with it once you've purchased it? And so a lot of the questions we're seeing being asked at the executive level is, help me do this better. Help me take this out of the process. Help me take human manual operations out of the equation so I can use that brain power to do something else. So those use cases are really interesting, that I sit on a lot of the executive boards where it's just a free-for-all of brain dump in regards to execution with the types of things that people are thinking to go do. It's all good. It's all use cases. They're all applicable. The question is going to be is, do you have the data? Do you have the model to go physically do it? And so that's the building blocks. Getting an idea is one thing. Once you've achieved the idea, and moving to the next step is the next. So I think a lot of the things that are out there right now that we're hearing questions in regards to trends and challenges, very typical, very cyclical. We're in a non-election year, coming into an election year. We have geopolitical issues going on right and left. We've had economic issues that have occurred since the pandemic occurred, with supply chain, with with people, quiet quitting. All of those pieces are on the minds of what's happening internal to an organization. And then once you get beyond that external piece, you start talking about how are my customers and how are my vendors looking at me and wanting and putting pressure on me for better experiences and execution. And as you start to think about those trends have led to kind of pockets of where AI is actually being used. How can I better the customer experience? How can I basically get a product, look at a product, try the product out before I even buy it? And how can I do that virtually? On an employee, how can I get the better experience for an employee? Does he get the cards on his birthday? Does he get the execution on his renewals of his anniversaries? Is he getting a scenario where he's being pushed to basically learn and do more based upon his own progress of what he wants to do when he wants to do it? How are my customers basically interacting with my vendors? How can I basically improve a customer experience all the way down the supply chain to make sure that they're getting the understanding of what they do and how they interact with me impacts the end customer? All of those experiences, I think, are going to drive additional use cases. And I think in the heart of all that and in the brain of all that is an ERP system and an AI system that can use the data in an efficient and effective manner, as well as be responsible for the execution and use of that data to the end user.
Tom, we're coming up on our 30 minutes here. We're coming to a close. I'm starting to realize maybe I needed to schedule an hour, Tom. I could keep going. I have so many questions. I'd like to try to sneak in a couple of quick ones. One is you mentioned Watson and the partnership with Watson. Could you tell me a little bit about is there a difference, or can we expect something different between what you'll do with Watson versus what Joule's intentions are for SAP Joule? And
so Joule is going to be the application layer to basically. So we've invested quite a bit internally on Joule and the execution of Joule. We've invested in partnerships that basically have gone from Databricks to Watson, et cetera. So the whole operating model and the platform will go through Joule. And so whether or not you're coming in through Watson, you're coming in through SAP, you're still hitting the same data layer, you're still hitting the same operating layer, and ultimately that's going to be the integration orchestration layer that basically goes through it. Joule will also have expansions into things like code creation. So you get back into low code, no code execution models where the end user will physically type in what they want. I want 2023 data year over year, month over month, 2022 data. I want to see the highs and lows. I want to see the outliers of my product pieces. I want to see the cost overruns. I want to see the profitability. Push a button, bam, the report shows up for you. As compared to you make that request, you send it off to IT. IT takes 2, 3, 4 months to basically do something. They come back. It's not exactly what you wanted. You go through the tapes, you go through all the testing, and you finally, get it. AI is going to be able to do that type of analytic and that type of reporting very quickly. So it's going to be the orchestration layer that basically will help input and output requests and the ability for partners to integrate into the data lake and data fabric that will be out there for us.
Awesome. So that Comer, we originally came from the old ERP side of things, and then as data grew, we realized, hey, we better get really good at the data engineering components of it. So we were heavily focused early on in BWA, and then HANA. We were very big with HANA. And now we spend a lot of time doing modeling and helping people architect their data so that they can deploy these LLMs or Gen AI type of models. Now, what advice would you have for an organization like ours, knowing so Joule's going to be that entry layer as you describe it? What should we be going out and getting certified in something? Is there a Joule certification? What advice would you have for an organization like ours that we provide services to help people engineer their data?
I would say stay tuned, because those announcements are actually coming out very shortly.
Darn.
Matter of fact, I think some of those announcements are going to happen with the kickoff meeting in January, and I think
Wow.
there'll be additional drops of functionality that'll be going all the way through Sapphire. But in general, there will be a certification process, and the question becomes at what layer the organization wants to play. Does it want to play at a development partner level? Does it want to play at an integration layer? Does it want to play at a Solex? So there's multiple layers of partnerships we've got with a lot of our partners, depending upon their app and depending upon what they're physically doing with it. So in general, yes, there will be a structure. Yes, we look forward and want partners who want to use the architecture and the data fabric to go through. We want them to bring ideas and use cases to us, because we feel at this point in time that everyone's going to be bringing good ideas, and the question becomes the better idea should be the winner. It shouldn't be technology dependent, and it should be something that can be leveraged within the organization and within the technology that we're using. So yes, we do look forward to it, and there will be some announcements coming.
Last question: is there a favorite use case that you're working on that you can talk about?
The one I proposed is, I'm not sure it's in cycle yet, but the one that kind of speaks to me right now, because of my industries being service industries, is the ability to look at contractual terms and contractual profitability, and be able to understand what made a particular contract more profitable than another. Was it the terms and conditions? Was it the current environment? Was it the customer? Was it the people that basically executed the contract, et cetera? So profitability analysis across contracts and across customers and our products would probably be the big use case I see. It was something I proposed to one of the boards I sit on internally. And as soon as I put it out there, it was, that's actually pretty good. And so I'm waiting to see, where it falls within the development stream. But at this point in time, there are quite a few that are being looked at. We're looking for partners to bring in those use cases, both at a GSSP and SI level. And then we're also looking at our development partners in regards to how they're going to go through it. And I've seen some of our initial customers and our initial products that are out there. And it's really, really, really interesting when you can basically get a partner solution and they pull up Joule in their solution. And they go in SAP and they pull up Joule, and it's the same app. It's running on the same data structure and the same data fabric. You're not moving data back and forth, but the integration of the two products are so finite down to the technology and DNA that you're actually able to do either function in either app seamlessly.
That's awesome.
And affect that data and affect the outcome of that data, irrespective of what product you happen to be in. So that is really kind of the long-term direction that I see being the best. And so these use cases will help drive that, and the partners are coming right along with us.
Well, Tom, thank you so much. This time flew by. Next time I'm going to book a longer time with you. I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing with us all of your experience. And this is really exciting times. And I hope you will join us again.
Yep.
And this has been great. Thank
Appreciate
you so
it,
much, Tom. And we look forward to our next conversation.
Sounds good. Happy holidays.